My name is Paul Smoke. I'm a professor of public finance and planning and director of international programs. I work primarily on public sector reform in developing countries. I've mostly focused on fiscal issues initially, but I've branched off into thinking about institutional and political reforms. And I primarily work in East and Southern Africa and Southeast Asia, although I've worked in other countries around the world. My background is in public finance and urban development. I originally worked more in the United States on state and local government issues. And then I started to work in developing countries. And it became interesting to me because I saw that there were things that I learned from working in the US context that I could apply in other places. But I also realized when I started working in other places that there were big differences that weren't being taken into account properly in the way that countries were approaching reform and in the way that international development assistance partners were promoting reform. There are two other strands to what I do. One is that I've brought very much a political economy perspective to this landscape of technical policy oriented reform, and have tried to look at who are the various actors in the system and what are their incentives to behave in certain ways and not. And so part of the strategic implementation strategy is how do you create the right incentives for people to behave in a certain way, and even prior to that, how do you come up with a starting point that begins to build this foundation, and then you use various kinds of incentives to drag the system along towards the results that the country wants to achieve. I've been working with a group of more than 30 international development agencies called the Development Partner Working Group on Decentralization and Local Governance. And in the context of donor commitment to reform the aid system, there have been a lot of harsh critiques of the development assistance industry. One of the leaders of that has been our own Bill Easterly here in the economics department at NYU. And a lot of it is about how detached and fragmented this donor assistance is. There are too many agencies with too many agendas trying to showcase what they individually are doing, and that what gets lost in the translation is what's best for the country. One of the things that I've been trying to do is case studies of how around these issues of decentralization and local governance, the donors are working together or at odds with various central government agencies, and how that's affecting the way that development assistance plays out and the effects that it has. If you look at why countries undertake decentralization, they do it for a number of reasons. Some do it for development purposes. You can better use national resources if, at least with some services, you target them better to what local communities need for their own social and economic development. So development, people believe that it can have an impact, if it has an impact on development, it can have an impact on poverty reduction. Others, I think, are more preoccupied just with the democratization issues, that they see this as an important way to embed a more democratic way of doing business by empowering local governments and engaging citizens. And increasingly we're seeing countries that are also pursuing decentralization for what one might call stabilization purposes. Countries that are in conflict, and they're looking for ways to hold the nation together. Central governments have to learn that they're not making all the decisions and controlling everything, and for at least the functions that are being taken over by local governments, they should be supporting and facilitating and building their capacity and not telling them what to do. And local governments have to learn how to stop looking to the center and looking more to their constituents, and citizens who are used to expecting not much from government at all in many of these countries have to learn how to engage productively with the local governments that are expected to help provide for their needs in a decentralizing environment. These kinds of issues can't be studied with any single methodology. I think that
it requires a set of quantitative and qualitative methods, and it requires issues that are explored at various levels. You have to collect information and analyze it, numerical information, but you also have to understand who are the actors that are involved and what are their perspectives and what are they willing to do and work with people to help them make judgments about what's feasible. And it's tricky to juggle these things, but my own view is that unless we do this, we are not going to have a sustainable impact in the environments that we're trying to help develop better systems and better service delivery outcomes and ultimately better poverty reduction and economic development outcomes.